Hi and welcome to my September wrap-up. This weird reading slumpy thing. I haven't lacked the desire to read. I've struggled to find a good book to read. Like, I keep going to my TBR shelf and just being like, I don't know. And even the idea of going to the library kind of rubs me the wrong way. I read 12 books and 2 novellas this month, which is still a lot, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely, I've been on like a downward trend for the last couple months. Did my wrap up by genre instead of like order that I read or anything, and I think I'm going to do that again. I really like that. 7 young adult books, 1 new adult book, and then 4 romance novels and 2 romance novel novellas. Okay, so first I read The Fiery Heart and Silver Shadows by Rochelle Mead. I was actually planning on only reading The Fiery Heart, but this was when I actually knew what I wanted to read, and I was like, no, just read Silver Shadows. Let yourself do it. So these are the 4th and 5th books in the Bloodline series by Rochelle Mead, like I said earlier. I don't want to say like too much because this is in the middle of the series. I gave The Fiery Heart 5 stars and Silver Shadows 4. Silver Shadows just had some story things that rubbed me the wrong way. Things seemed to drag a little bit for me and stuff like that, but there is a crap ton going on. I really enjoyed The Fiery Heart though. And then I read Starling by Fiona Paul, and I think this is where my mom took a dip. This got 2 stars from me. I read Belladonna, the 2nd book in the series, last month. I think I gave it 4 stars, but I've actually gone back and readjusted that to 3 because the longer I sat with it, the more the things that bothered me, and so I felt giving it 4 stars was unfair and had to knock it down to a 3. I kind of forced myself to read this, and I'm really disappointed with the series as a whole. I enjoyed Venom, the 1st book, a lot, and I just felt the series just continued to degrade as it went on, and I don't know, I didn't like where the main character Cass, where she ended up going, like personality-wise. I thought the love story was really weird, and I guess poorly done. Like, weird is it's an odd word to use, but I wasn't invested in the romance. I would actually usually like get pulled out whenever that came up, and I think in a lot of ways the series would have benefited by there being less or no romance, because the parts I enjoyed were the non-romantic elements. This is another disappointing book, and that is Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. So I actually got this from the library, and I think that was one of the best decisions I ever made. People raved about this book, and I really thought about buying it, but I was like, no, you've already bought a bunch of books this month. Just go get it from the library. If you really like it, then you can buy it. And I'm gonna be honest, I mean, I did a review of that, like a written review of this, but for a huge chunk of the book, like probably this much of the book, this book was like a 2-star read for me. The very ending, like the last bit of it, when secrets start to come out, basically, is the best way I can say it without spoiling anything. It started to get better, so I bumped it up to 3 stars, but I was still really disappointed, and I can't figure out why people like it so much. I thought it was going to be more fantasy-like, and it was really slow, but not in that good world-building slow, but in that like poor character development and everything slow. And I felt that the main character, what's her name, Leah? Yes, Leah. I thought that like every decision she made because she like wanted a boyfriend. Like, she felt like a 13-year-old girl in our world, and I was like, no, check yourself. Like, your decisions affect other people. Like, you're not just a normal person, and I'm not sure she ever came to terms with that. And it was just, I don't know. I appreciated the idea. If you don't know the series, just go watch somebody's review. They'll explain it. But there's like 2 love interests, and one of them is an assassin sent to kill her, and one is a prince that she ran away from. Like, they were supposed to get married, and she ran away on their wedding day. And she doesn't know that either of them are that, and you as the reader don't know who is who. And although I figured it out pretty early on, like I felt like the hints were kind of obvious, there was a point where I was like, oh, that's too obvious, maybe I'm wrong, but no, I was right. That I thought was interesting, but I just have so many questions about the world, like the politics of the world, the magic of the world, all of those things I'm just really confused about, and I don't understand why we weren't given more explanation. I don't know how many books are going to be in this series, but I do plan on picking up the second one. I'll probably get it from the library again. I'm hoping it'll be better because like the ending of this got better, so I'm hoping that means the series is on like a trend, like an upward trend. Next, this was like last weekend, I was like, was it when I had just finished? Yeah, I had like just finished that and a romance novel that I found disappointing as well, and oh, and right before that was Starling. So it was just like 3 disappointing reads in a row, and I was just like, I don't even know what to do with my life. And I was like, you know what I could do? I could reread Pushing the Limits. What? I read this last year. I think it's almost been a year since I read this the first time. I think I read it in like October. I was a little nervous that this book was going to like disappoint on a reread, but it didn't. It was just as good. I gave it 5 stars, although Crash Into You, still my favorite. Still my favorite. That one I have reread before already. It's still my favorite. But this is a close second. I kind of plan on rereading this anyways because the direct sequel to this, Breaking the Rules, is coming out in December. And I kind of want to like brush up on it, but this is perfect, and it was what I needed. It really helped me, and I read it differently this time. For some reason, Katie McGarry, even on a reread, because this is how Crash Into You was too, I can't put it down. Like, I literally know what's gonna happen, and I can't put them down. I love these characters so much. But the first time I read it, because her books are told in dual POV, the first time around, I was super sucked into Echo, the girl story. Like, she made me cry, and I was super invested in her. But this time I grew really attached to Noah. Not that I wasn't attached to him the first time, it was just a completely different read, and I like bawled my eyes out every time, basically every time he had a chapter I was crying. Next, I read Isla and the Happily Ever After by Stephanie Perkins, and this got 4 stars from me, and I think I know Anna got 5. I'm pretty sure Anna got 5. Did they get 4? They may have all gotten 4, but I would definitely say Anna is my favorite. I can't decide if I like this more than Lola. I think I would need to reread Lola to make that decision. I did enjoy that this book was different. Like, it's that Josh and Isla get together pretty early on in the book, and then it's about their relationship versus the journey to a relationship. And I do love stories like this. Like, I prefer them in the historical genre of romance. I've noticed I'm really attracted to marriage of convenience stories, and that in a way is a similar thing to this because they're already together and then they need to find their way. I struggled with Isla sometimes in here. She was kind of annoying sometimes, and I thought she lost herself sometimes, and it was never acknowledged. I feel like she got a little too wrapped up in Josh. But in general, I really enjoyed it. I'd be interested to reread it at some point and see if my opinion changes. And the last young adult novel I read was Uncommon Criminals by Ally Carter, and this is the second book in the High Society trilogy, I guess. I assume it's just 3 books. The series is about a girl named Katerina, and she comes from a family of thieves, and she, in the first book, has left that world behind but gets pulled back in, and so this one picks up where that one left off. And I kind of wish I had reread High Society. I made my way through it. It got 4 stars, I think. Yes, 4 stars. I really enjoy Ally Carter and her writing style. I think I like the Gallagher Girls books just more than these, although maybe if I finish the series, my opinion will change. And I know there's a novella. I'll have it on my Nook, where it's a crossover between the 2 of them. And once I read Perfect Scoundrels, the last book, I will read that novella. But these are just fun, heisty con books. I like Katerina. She's a fun character. In this one, she struggles with a lot of things, which I really appreciated. And I like Hale, the like guy or whatever. And I just like Ally Carter seems to write different books than everyone else. Like, Gallagher Girls is about a school for spies, and this one is about teenage heisty con people. This is basically, if you've ever seen the show Leverage, this is a lot like Leverage, but for like teenagers, and Leverage is probably my favorite show, so always in the mood. There was actually lines in here that are pretty close to lines from Leverage, and it started to make me wonder if she had seen the show and if she knew about it, not in like a plagiarism kind of a way, but just similar things. So one new adult book I read was Foreplay by Sophie Jordan, which is so unfortunately titled in my opinion. That got 3 stars from me. I thought it was a pretty good read. I would reread it. That was the first book I read this month, so I'm like struggling to remember. It is the first book in like a companion-y series, and I do want to read the other 2 books. It's kind of your typical new adult story. It's about a girl with like a troubled past, and she meets a guy with a troubled past, and just things. But it also had an unrequited love story, and not between them, but between her and somebody else. And I can't stand unrequited love stories. I think that's part of my issue with Isla, actually, is it's kind of an unrequited love story because she's loved him from afar for so long. And my biggest issue with Foreplay was, I don't mind predictability and stuff like that. I talked about that in my like introduction to romance series. It ended really abruptly. Like, it just was like, boom, done. And so on to the romance novels that I read. So first I read 2 novellas, and I read the one for It's in His Kiss and On the Way to the Wedding, and I really don't remember like anything from these books. I think I own On the Way to the Wedding, but I'd never reread either of these. So it's been probably like 5 or 6 years since I read the original books, but I did enjoy them. I gave them both 3 stars, which is a pretty good rating for a novella from me. It's in His Kiss was really good because it took place like 20-25 years in the future, like after the events of the book, and I love seeing couples older like that, like knowing that they're still happy and that they still love each other, and all of that is always good. And then On the Way to the Wedding was really interesting because it got a little darker and a little more dangerous, and that's kind of a risky thing to do in a short novella like this, but I thought she did a really, really good job. And I only have one book left, or one novella left in that anthology, and that one is Violet in Bloom, which is about their mother. And then I read a book from the library, which I already returned, so I don't have that with me, and that is Waking Up with the Duke by Lorraine Heath. And this is the 3rd and final book in one of her series. I had read the first book a month or 2 ago, not read the second one. It's got 4 stars from me. It's kind of a weird book, which I'm learning is what she writes. It's a historical romance, and it's about a woman, and so her husband was injured in like a driving carriage accident thing. He's like paralyzed from the waist down, like everything, so he can't like, you know, have sex or anything. And he was injured basically by his best friend, so she hates and she was pregnant at the time and lost the baby due to stress, she assumes. So she blames his best friend for everything, like, and all of that, but her husband wants her to have a baby, so he asks his best friend to sleep with her and get her pregnant, and they eventually agree to do this and then have to struggle. It's very like Lancelot, Guinevere, Arthur-y kind of a feeling to me. It made me really uncomfortable. It's basically a cheating book, even though all parties involved know what's going on, and that kind of weirded me out. But I did really enjoy it. It was full of emotions, and I liked both of the hero and the heroine, and the whole time I was wondering how this was going to end, and I was very confused about what was going to happen, which very rarely happens in romance. I read Screwdrivered by Alice Clayton, which I bought this month, and this is the 3rd book in her Cocktail series. This is the first one to talk about different characters. This is about Viv, who's Simon's friend from Wallbanger, and this guy named Clark. And I thought this was a good read. I gave it 4 stars. I feel like this is less a romance and more about Viv's personal growth, which is fine. I thought the romance could have gone on a little longer. Like, it kind of just, this one kind of ended a little quickly. I wouldn't have minded a couple more chapters with these characters, I did really like Clark. I thought he was fun. He's kind of a nerdy hero, but not that awkward kind of nerdy that some people do. Which is fine, that exists, but it's nice to have a different kind of nerd. And she's nerdy too. She's very smart. She's into like computer code and those kinds of things. And I did think that this was funny, but it was more like, oh, that's funny, keep reading. Whereas Wallbanger like made me laugh out loud hysterically. I think the difference is that Caroline from Wallbanger, her sense of humor matches with my own, whereas Viv's doesn't. 2 more to go. Then there's The Devil Wears Kilts by Suzanne Enoch. I read A Rogue with a Brogue last month, I think, and this is the first book in that series, and I really liked A Rogue with a Brogue, but this was just 3 stars. This one just was disappointing for me. I didn't really feel the chemistry between the 2 main characters in here, and I felt like they kind of went through the book like, oh, we're characters in a romance novel, we should kiss now, we should fall in love now. And I just didn't completely feel it. And then there's another plot line where like there's feuding families, which was executed beautifully in A Rogue with a Brogue, and in here I just felt it kind of to be blah. And last is What I Love About You by Rachel Gibson. This is like her most recent release. This I gave 3 stars? Yes, 3 stars. I'm kind of hit or miss with Rachel Gibson, I'm gonna be honest. Some of her books I like, I love. And then there's other books that I just find kind of meh. And this one was a little more meh. I think the cover is adorable, and that girl looks like Britney Snow. It just kind of fell flat for me. I liked a lot of parts of this story. I like the main character Natalie and her daughter Charlotte. I love the dog Sparky. Like, I kind of liked and kind of didn't. I don't know. There's parts of the books I really liked. One good thing about Rachel Gibson, I guess, although I think she might overdo it, is she includes kids in her books a lot. Like, one, she does secret kids a lot, which I'm not a fan of, but where characters have kids, and I think that's an interesting dynamic to include, but I felt like some parts of that went unresolved in here. And her ex-husband has an interesting story, and I enjoyed that, although I'll say Susan Elizabeth Phillips' Dream a Little Dream does better with that plot, in my opinion. I did like going back to Idaho, though. She writes a lot of books in Idaho, and her books kind of make me want to visit there, which is great. If you're looking for a Rachel Gibson, like a good Rachel Gibson, in my opinion, pretty much any of her hockey player books. I'm not a huge fan of the first one, Simply Irresistible, but any of the other ones, yeah, I don't really know what else to say about this. So that is my September wrap-up. If you want to talk about any of the books that I read this month, you can leave a comment, or if you want to talk about books you read, feel free to do so, and thank you for watching. Bye.